Hello and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. It's a podcast about tapping into the biggest source for our success, satisfaction, and happiness in our lives and in our work. It is about the wonderful uniqueness of us. These are conversations and some meditations on what that looks and feels like when we use our singular gifts to find and follow our passions, make our dreams come true, and engage with the world in the way we were created to serve. I hope this gets deep because that's where we find the best stuff, but it's also about the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. So let's dare to be brave, be free, be you together. My guest today has spent her career telling and sharing important stories on multiple platforms. She's an author, editor, journalist, broadcaster, award-winning screenwriter, and producer of films and events. Her work is sharply focused around making space for stories that matter. It's one of my favorite things about her. You can hear her on WGN Radio discussing business and technology news, on her daily podcast for Crain's Chicago Business, and her own podcast, Unconventional, which I just was a guest on. She was also granted the honorary title of Baroness by Her Majesty Queen Caroline of the Micronation of Ladonia. So with honor and distinction, I welcome to the Fearless Authenticity Pod, the one and only, a lady, Amy Guth, looking like a lady. How you doing, friend?
I'm great, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you said yes to this. I feel like it's a continuation of our conversation from your podcast with a little bit of a different twist. So I want to start with you a little differently than I do with most people. Because this is a continuation of a conversation. When you hear the words fearless authenticity, what's your definition of it? First reactions, thoughts?
You know what? I have a lot of feelings around the word fearless because people use that. We use that we use it as a compliment. Oh, so-and-so is fearless. And I think that's actually, I don't know that that's a compliment. To say that you're not registering fear means that maybe there's some empathy stuff going on. But I feel like the key thing is like when people say fearless, what they really mean is you feel fear and move forward anyway.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's really what comes up to me is like the courage to move forward despite fear, not because you have a lack of it, but saying, okay, I acknowledge this. I even think that fear can be like a beacon. I say that all the time, that it can, if you're going, this thing is really, I got a lot of anxiety around this, maybe I should move towards it and unpack it a little bit and see what's up. And so fearless authenticity to me means that unpacking process of what's really down in the core of my being that makes me afraid of this. And what should I do about it? What clues are there because I have feelings around it?
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I don't know that I've said it any better than that. But the fearless part, absolutely. Because I think a lot of times people do incorrectly believe fearless means without fear. That would be sociopathic, right, or pathological on some level, I think, because it's a denial of a thing that makes us human. And I do feel like fearlessness is necessary to do what it is we're supposed to be doing when we're here. Do you feel like you are doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Well, I'm on that path. I don't know that I've gotten all the things off the list that I want to do, but I'm certainly pointed in the right direction, I feel like, for sure.
Good. Well, you do a lot of different things. I mean, I met you when you were working at the Tribune for Tribune Media. Since then, you've done so many different things. And while you were doing that, writing novels, doing yoga, screenwriting, becoming a baroness, of many different things. What is it about your career that makes it all make sense for you? All those different things, because I'm sure you get, as those of us who are multi-hyphenates often do, you get that thing of, you either get this, that, head tilted to the side with the questioning look like, are you crazy? Or you get this, rabid curiosity of how you've been able to do all these quote unquote different things, but you see the sense in it all. So what's the thread that connects all the things you've done together? And when and how did you decide that that was the path for you?
So, a lot of times people say, you do so many things. When do you sleep? And I know they're joking and they're trying to say something nice, but I usually come back very forcefully, not meanly, but clear. And I say, listen to me. Everything that I've ever done in my life is because of sleep, not in spite of it. Let's be real clear. You don't get very far without sleep and self care. So, to me, the portfolio career is important because that is how my brain is wired. To do one thing on a schedule of someone else's doing does not work for my brain at all. And I think part of that is I had some exposure to death. I lost some people very early in my life. And one of them, when it was explained to me, I was about 5 or 6, and my dad, I said, well, where did she go? And my dad said, well, that's it. She's finished. It's gone. And and some people are kind of horrified that he didn't cushion that more for a child, but I think that was a gift because that became very clear to me. We do not have time here to waste. You must do what is fascinating to you. So to me, if you are completely satisfied and fascinated doing one thing in your life, bless you. Good on you. I am not that person. I need a lot of different things cooking for it to make sense and for it to work. My brain cycles through things pretty fast. And I'm like, I need another thing. I need another thing. And add into that this feeling like we only have a small amount of time and we have to make the most of it. That all adds up to why would you not do a portfolio of things that fascinate you?
Wow, I love that answer. What's the thread for you throughout all those things? I see some, but what's the thread that connects it for you?
Well, I'd like to hear yours because I will always take free therapy from Jeanne Sparrow. But
So
I would say story. I mean, storytelling, particularly underrepresented voices of, let me say that again, particularly stories from underrepresented voices. I think that's always the thing I'm looking at. I'm always challenging the dominant narrative. I'm always so curious about that. I was that kid who was a complete pain in the butt that was like, why? Why? Why is that? But why? And I think that's translated, I know that's translated in adulthood as, okay, I understand that's the legacy business model, but how's that working out for you? Let's try this other thing. Let's do another way. So to me, it's about challenging narratives and making sure that everybody's got a seat at the table to tell important stories. That often quoted and often misquoted thing that like until the lions learn to write, the story will always glorify the hunter. That I have that in my house. Like that's a very important thing to me to remember. It's always important to who are the stakeholders and what is their perspective of this situation that's happening. And so I think that's really it. It's about story to me.
yeah, that's what I would have said. So my therapy is no better than yours, my dear, and
Sweet.
you know yourself best. But although for me also, what I see in it, in addition to story, is curiosity and a deep curiosity, a generous curiosity that wants to dig through things. Because a lot of people's curiosity stops where their interest begins. Like they don't care about what anything means beyond how it affects them. And I see you as going, no, this isn't about me. It's about you. And even the way you interview or ask questions, I find that to be the case. Am I incorrect on that?
No, I think that's pretty spot on. See, free therapy from Jeanne Sparrow.
And I'm not even qualified for all of that. What is something, because we just talked about something you do differently in how you pursue your career. And I'm sure there are other things as well in your life that are different from the norm. Your podcast is called Unconventional for a reason. What is it that you love about that? Or is that something you've had to learn to love about yourself, or learn that other people may not accept it or celebrate it in the same way you do?
I think kind of all of the above. I've always thought it was a positive, but there were times in my life when I felt like an outsider or kind of an outcast of why can't I do this the way everybody else does? Why does everybody always, why can't I do, why can't I just kind of fall in line? But then I remember that I find falling in line very tedious and I don't have a lot of patience for it. And so I tend to, I've always thought it was a superpower. I've always thought it was a good thing. I've never, ever thought that was a bad thing. I think some people would say it affects my patience in that I don't tend to like, I believe in the power of starting and an iterative approach. And when that became a word we were using in a business setting, I was very excited because I was like, there's a name for that thing that I do. And the reason is because I've seen so many brilliant people wait to start and become these gonna people. I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna start a business. And they wait for the perfect time and they wait for the perfect conditions and they wait till they've talked it to death and they never do it. And so many brilliant ideas have just died on the vine. And so I think that to me kind of reinforces this, see, this thing I do is okay because it makes starting okay and desirable because there's things you don't know right out of the gate. There's things you have to just get in there and learn and figure out that you can read about all day, but until you go do them, it's not going to make sense. I mean, even our field, right? You can read about and talk about and learn about broadcast all day long, but until you're in front of a microphone, you're going to be like, hi, and you're going to suck. Like you're going to have some bad broadcasts at the beginning and you got to get them out of your system. But I mean, I think it's a positive. And I've certainly encountered people that are like, no, wait, we can't just start this thing yet. You got to talk it to death. We need to make a binder. We need to do these things. No, which doesn't mean I like fly by the seat of my pants and I wing it all, but I think that's where that curiosity is going. I've already like thought 3 steps ahead and gone, okay, if this, then this, and if this, then this. All right, good. That's a good start. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think that I think that education, I don't know about education now, speaking of compulsory primary education, teaches us to think that way. And when you don't, it ends up being reflected in your grades.
Yeah.
And it ends up being reflected in how you look at yourself. I saw something on Twitter this morning and I went on a little minor rant because it spoke to this for me. You know, it was somebody making a comment about how to be a morning person in 3 easy steps. Like, oh, no, honey, no. Because if you are like, and most of the advice underneath it was really about how to be productive, but it was all this time constraints on it. And even though we all have schedules, right, for other people and things like that, very few people actually are able to make their own schedules. So I'm not talking about that kind of thing, but the idea that you recognize when you can do work best, even something as individual as your circadian rhythm is being policed by other people. And there's this message that if you do fly by the seat of your pants, or it looks like you're flying by the seat of the pants, that's wrong. If you don't wake up first thing at 5 o'clock in the morning and do all these different things, then you're not productive. Like those narratives can be so damaging. Did you ever fall prey to any of those about anything? When it comes to your career, maybe your personality or the way that you learn and do things, were there times when you held back or changed how you did something because of that? Oh, I don't do that. That isn't me.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm thinking of a lot of little things where I thought that this is the thing you have to do. And I mean, morning person is a great example because one of my favorite expressions is both things can be true because there's not a lot of nuance in the world. And most of our conversations operate under the assumption that in order to make an intelligent point, you need to pick one. And that binary thinking, I think, is very dangerous. Both things can be true. You can be a morning person and also not like to be productive in the morning. Like I need a minute when I wake up. I love to get up early, but I also like to sit with my thoughts and say, what are you doing? Where are you? How are you today? What's going on with you? Because how do you know if you're not listening to yourself, if you're just jumping up and getting to work? And back to education, I think mostly our primary education system raises us to be good employees. It's raising workers, not necessarily leaders and entrepreneurs. It's not really built for any of us that are trying to do our own thing or do something a little bit outside the box, right? Another thing I think that I fell into is less about thinking, but more of a physical thing is I straightened my hair for a long time because I thought that's what you had to do in broadcast. And one day I just said, what in the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Because I have a belief that I won't get to do the things I want to do in front of cameras if my hair is curly. So literally the message I'm sending myself every day that I'm straightening out my hair is the way you are is not enough to do what you want. And that's subtle. And I've been accused of, oh, you're overthinking it. That's kind of psychobabble. No, that is literally the message you're sending to yourself every single day. The way I am showing up in the world is not good enough. And I need to change it and hide it somehow to do the things that I want. And it was an interesting experience when I stopped straightening my hair. I had male colleagues say some of the most just strangest things to me. One said, so are you just not doing your hair anymore? You can't just leave it all wild. And I was like, this is literally what my hair does. It's curly. Well, but you can't just do that. I mean, one said, oh, I thought you wanted to do more TV broadcasts, so you're not into that anymore? As if like I'm just giving up on life, letting myself go with my curly hair. And I really, I always say it's about so much more than hair. It's about people are going to react when you are visibly opting out of a beauty standard that says you must be thin, white, have light hair, have it highlighted, your hair must be straight, you have to look a certain way, do a certain thing, and only that's beautiful and only that's acceptable. And when you're actively challenging that, they kind of do flip out and really react some kind of way to you.
I know that battle.
Yes.
I mean, because that's a classic Black woman battle in television. And
sure.
there are people who fall on all different sides of it because it's also a struggle in life. One of my friends, when I was in my 20s, said to me, the personal is political. And
sure.
I hated that saying when I first heard it because I was like, no, my personal choices are my own personal damn choices. Damn it. Fuck. But it wasn't until my personal choices started affecting other people, or I realized that they did, that it became, because my hair has been a contention in my career my whole life, because I started in TV. Like the thing that used to confuse me was my hair was like this, except darker all over when I started in TV. And I had a manager come to me, a Black woman, two Black women, as a matter of fact, who I'm pretty sure were sent by other people who had issue with it. Like, you hired me like this. Why are you coming here now and telling me that something's going on with my hair? And that's the reason why I grew it out. And but I was petty about it because I grew it out and I grew it out curly. I didn't straighten it. Matter of fact, I straightened it on the last day, like the last week I was there, I straightened it. Because that's how I'm built. And especially at that point in time, because I didn't really have a language to defy it, because it was also unspoken. So even if I had the words, at 30 or whatever, to actually make an argument around it and say and question what it was, I couldn't, because it was never spoken. It was always like, because in broadcast, they have the right to tell you, oh, this might be more appealing or what have you. But they didn't go all the way of saying they wanted me to straighten my hair. So I didn't. But it didn't really seem to affect anything. So it's interesting how our identities, and this is another thing I like to explore in Fearless Authenticity, about how all these different identities bring stuff to other people. Because when I started growing my hair out, I started getting letters from viewers with curly hair, Black, white, and other, who were like, I'm so glad to see my hair on TV. So I don't know. I mean, do you think that was a challenge for you when you made that decision? Was that like a compromise you had made that became a challenge for yourself?
In terms of, was it challenging to go through with it, or I gave myself the challenge?
Yeah, because it sounds like it was a compromise before that you hadn't really chosen to make. Like you thought that was what you accepted this premise, but then it became a challenge for yourself when you just decided not to do it, and then all this feedback you're getting was not necessarily in line with the way you were seeing it. And up to and including people telling you that you were thinking about it too much, which is your body. How could you possibly think about it too much? But
too much. That's not possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it did become a challenge in that it became a very conscious part of my identity. And I really, there's so many people on Instagram and YouTube that are like, here's how to heal your hair if you've been straightening it all this time. And I made some genuine friendships of people going, okay, but I have this question. You did this thing. What is that? You use this word. I don't know what that code word is in the curly hair land. And I made a lot of friendships with people with hair, and I learned about hair. And then fast forward, not even like a week ago, a friend of mine, she has straight hair. I've been friends with her for like 35 years. Her daughter has curly hair, and she's starting to hit puberty and starting to kind of care about her appearance a little bit. And my friend's like, I don't know what to do with my hair. Felt deeply, my mom had straight hair, so she didn't know what to do with my hair either. And I sat down and I wrote like a 3-page Google Doc for my friend. And I was like, do all these things. First of all, if you do one thing, a towel may never touch your hair again. It's all about a t-shirt fabric. And I like wrote out all this stuff for her. And I felt like this is the golden chain of passing knowledge of curly hair. And I realized like I have collected a lot of information, because at first I was like, I don't know. I just get out of the shower. I was like, no, that's not true. I know a lot of things, because everything you think you know about hair only applies to straight hair. Anything you've ever read in a magazine, it's written for white women with straight hair, most likely. So forget all of that and learn your hair. And it became an exercise in self-trust. Again, it was about way more than hair. And once in a while, when I post something, like recently, I had my hair anniversary where I stopped straightening it. And I posted something on Instagram, and somebody sent me a message. It was a man, and he said, why do you always do that? You're about so much more than hair. Why do you always talk about that? And I said, because it's about so much more than hair is the reason I talk about it. Because it's not about, he was kind of accusing me of being shallow and like, oh, you're just acting like some beauty blogger. You're more than that. And that's exactly why I do that, because there is so much more to it. And I was like, I don't expect you to understand, but there's a lot more to it than hair. So much more.
And is there anything even wrong with it just being about the hair? And,
Exactly.
and it seems this is another one of those binary thinking things for me, that just because you're intelligent does not mean that your intellectuality somehow cancels out your desire to present in a way that you want to in the world. And that's authentic too. It's like there's all these things. Like I saw a video recently on TikTok where, some man complimented a woman about her intellectuality and how he liked that she wasn't putting, I think he said something like, put your ass all in the camera to get likes or whatever. And she was like, well, hold up, wait a minute, hold up. If I do choose to do that, that does not cancel out the fact that I'm intellectual. Or does it for you? And then that's a you thing. That's not a me thing.
That's right.
And so that kind of leads me to the how do you handle the controversial things that come from speaking your mind, speaking your truth, challenging, the dominant narrative? How do you handle those things? Do you see them as challenges, or do you just see them as something as part of the job?
I think it's part of the job. I think it's part of my moral fiber. I think if you don't say something, that's a bigger issue. I really feel I don't think anyone could ever accuse me of like keeping my mouth shut when I shouldn't have, or when I should have, I mean, I tend to, hey, that's not cool. Like I'll jump on something because I think it's important to call things out. And I think it's important to, look, we're here for a short amount of time, as far as we know. We've got to do the right thing. And I don't think that I don't really believe in karma. I know it's very popular to believe in that. But to me, karma is a reward system of I'm doing good to get good. And I think it's important to do good for the sake of doing good. It's not for the sake of getting points or some big cosmic wheel and what you'll get back. It's do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you might be rewarded for it later. And I think that's important.
That's a mic drop moment, man. It's interesting though, because I look at karma as a punishment system. I don't look at it as rewards. I look at it as when you do something fucked up and you put that bad energy into the world, it's coming back on you. It's going to boomerang real quick. And, we aren't always lucky enough to see that happen to the people who deserve it. But that is how I look at karma. Even though I do believe, I guess there could be good karma for doing good things. I don't think it's the reason for it. Like, and I also think that if you did something that you were doing it for the good karma, then that would actually be bad karma.
For sure. For
That's
sure.
that's how I look at it.
I see people all the time on social media. They'll do something and then go talk about it. I just spent the day at the soup kitchen feeding people. How about just do it? How about just do that thing and go home and go to bed and count your lucky stars that you were able to do it. You don't have to tell people about it. That's the thing. And I think that's kind of one of the highest forms of doing, is when you don't tell people about it. I mean, I saw somebody maybe a month or so ago tweet about, I just gave this homeless guy $1. Okay.
And
You need a pat on the back, friend? Why? What do you want right now?
Yeah, I think the only thing that seeing good acts of service could do is inspire other people to do it, but it has to be non-exploitative, and that's a really hard line.
That's right.
I'm thinking about some new things here, Amy Guth. I'm sorry, lady Amy Guth. Any failures in your life that have taught you lessons, and how did you bounce back from them?
Oh, geez, so many failures. Well,
biggest ones, or the most memorable ones that taught you the biggest lessons?
Well, I think generally women aren't allowed to learn in public. We need to come out of the gate polished, right? Like a guy can, generally speaking, a guy could say, release his first book or film or song or whatever, or try his hand in a new medium of broadcast or something. And he's getting better. He's learning. He's doing this thing. But if you're a woman and you don't come out of the gate perfect, you will never, you probably will not get another chance. And I learned that lesson in a hard and embarrassing way. And I feel like when I first started trying to do television, that was a big goal of mine. And I think the first time I was ever on TV was with you. And it was immediately, I thought it was fun, but nobody told me what to do, right? I didn't know anything about it. And there was backlash. And it was painful and it was embarrassing.
What happened? Wait, I have nothing but good memories of the times that you came on. What happened?
Oh, well, the good thing is, like, we have all these great pictures of us having a very good time. So I was like, okay, we did have fun, right? It was good.
Yeah.
There was like viewer stuff there was some industry colleagues, let's say, that were like, why did you do that? You should stick behind the microphone. You should stick to radio.
How did I not know this?
It was a whole thing. And then, like, remember how I suddenly didn't come back? It was this whole thing because I wasn't asked back, because it was like, when I was first asked, it was like, sure, I've never done TV, but I want to learn. But learn isn't an option when you're a woman. You need to come in perfect. And so I think that's like a theme, I think, that
girl,
and that
I
kind
had
of
no idea.
Oh, I've seen some of those tweets. They were a thing. There's outrageous diary entries. They were a whole thing. There was like criticism about my appearance. There was all kind of things that I learned. And I was like, okay, so maybe I won't wear glasses. Fair point. You can see lights on them. Thing I didn't think about. So I scrambled and went and got contacts really fast and figured it out, because I was like, okay, fair enough. You only see, lights glaring on the glasses. That's fair. That's a reasonable thing. But there's also I watched it back and I was like, holy hell, I didn't know what to do with my hands or legs, or I didn't know how to sit. I sit like an idiot. I sit like a total weirdo on this couch that I'm supposed to be sitting nice. So I tried to sit nice, and then I looked like I kind of had to stick up my ass. And I was like, well, that's not the right way to sit either. How do you even hold your human form in front of a camera? I don't know these things. And it was a lot. And I think I got a lot of shit for it. And
I had no idea. And that is not how I experienced you either. That's the other part. But again, this goes back to our conversation about how, or wait, maybe this wasn't, I can't remember if this is a you and me conversation or if I had a conversation with somebody else about this, but it's like that thing of, you can have a shared experience and experience it completely different than somebody else does.
Yeah. Completely. Yeah. So I think that's a great example of, and I interviewed a filmmaker, Maria Magenti, about this for for an anthology about female filmmakers, and it was published by Routledge, and she talked about this very thing because her first film she made a story of two women in love, and she was like, because I didn't see that story being told, and I wanted my own kind of love story on the screen. So she had this film, and it didn't do, I guess, what it should have, done at the box office. And so she's like, and so I never really got a shot again in the way that I wanted. Whereas men, I would see male directors come out with a dud, but he's learning, he's new, and she said it really crystallized for me. We don't get the same runway to learn. You can do it once, but then the second time you're on, you better be good. You better be really good if you get that second chance. So I think that was something that was made clear to me over several experiences. But I don't think it's stopped me. In fact, I mean, that's just my brain. That's just kind of how I'm wired. Like the best thing you can do to motivate me is be like, you'll never do that, Amy Guth. I'll be like, oh, I will. The hell I won't. I'm on it. I'll be all over it. So it'll really only serve to motivate me, because then I was like, well, I'll be my own green light. Maybe I'll just make my own show or something. Maybe I'll do this, like that's how my brain works, because things that most human beings should accept as no, that's not going to work, don't occur to me. Like I can Google it and figure it out. That's craziness, but I should, but it's helped me like bust through some limits. Whereas I'm like, okay, that hurt and it freaked me out, and I feel nervous about this, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. It doesn't mean that's the truth with a capital T. It just means I need to try a different thing to get the thing that I want, to do the thing that I want. And I think that's a lesson I've learned again and again and continue to learn. That's don't learn, forget. I mean, we were talking about this on my podcast the other day. That's such a disappointment of adulthood that you don't like figure it out and then you're done. No, look, there are all these other things that you need to unpack and figure out once you get there.
Wow. I wish you had said something then.
What am I going to do? Hi, I think I failed terribly. Can I never, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
I probably should have. I should have.
It's not, what? It's not even a should have. I just wish you would have. It's like the path you do is the path you do, right? And the way it goes. It just always shocks me so much when somebody's perception from feedback elsewhere is different than the feedback I would have given, or the experience that I had, and I was there with you. So that part is fascinating to me. But it's a lesson that I see over and over again. And it sounds like there was some very good embedded learning in that process for you. So, I wouldn't want to take that from you. Would you say your bounce back from failures? So we talk about that one failure. Would it be the case that your bounce back every single time is that determination and that crystallization of what it is you need to do? Or do you have other things that help you come back and get back to who Amy is in that situation? Because those kinds of things pull you off your square.
Yeah, they do. Generally, I think I'm the bounce back kid. And that's probably like coping mechanism I picked up in childhood because I needed to do that to survive. But I would say I have tackled some traumatic topics before in my work. And I have grossly underestimated how doing that would traumatize me. I have grossly underestimated that. And those bounce backs took a little more time and a little more thought and some help. Right? I think everybody should have therapy. Therapy is a good thing. Everyone in the world can benefit from it. I'm so glad that we're in a moment where we're talking more about mental health and more people are openly talking about therapy and things like that. Because there have been a couple of projects where, one in particular, that was a lot of trauma attached to it that I did not realize I was walking into. I actually thought I was well prepared for it. And in fact, it ended up being much worse. And that was a big one that I don't know will ever go away. That one still kind of makes me flinch a little bit. When that topic comes up, I'm kind of like, oof, okay, you're having a reaction, but this is your trauma speaking. This is not reality. This is not, or it is reality, but you can keep going. You can move through that. And it took me a while to even talk about that because I felt like, well, hell, I took the project on. I don't get to bitch about it. I don't get to complain because I did it I did it myself. That's not the case. I think it's actually important, and it's hard to open up about that kind of stuff, but it is important. I a friend of mine, I was just interviewing her not long ago about one of her projects. She did a documentary about sex trafficking, and she describes hitting a wall in that project because she was like, I was talking to underage girls that had been trafficked, and I thought my experience in life was so different than them that I would be able to be this unobjective or this objective observer and just be behind the camera and just interview them. And in fact, it became a mental health issue because I was so horrified by what I was hearing. And she herself was in danger a few times just by doing the project. And that was the case with something I worked on too. And it was very validating to me to hear her talk about that and say, it did make me pick my topics a little differently. And it did make me go in with a little better armor for taking the next topic, knowing you're still a human being. You can be tough. Both things can be true. You can be a very tough person and you can have a lot of mental endurance and still be hurt and still be traumatized. And you need to have a plan for carrying yourself, especially if you're dealing with high stakes topics or if you're around people that have been traumatized. You can glean some of that trauma for yourself for sure.
Wow. Yeah. And you can also make the choice not to do it again.
That's right.
If it does put you in danger. And I think there's a narrative that often happens around a lot of different topics about it. And you hit upon it. And I want to dive a little deeper into that. You chose this, so this is yours. What are you complaining about? Like when famous people speak out about something, regardless of what it is, it's like, you're famous, you chose that. Or if they complain about the nature of fame and how they've used it and those sorts of things.
Well, we're seeing this right now with the way with Kim and Kanye. We're seeing this very thing. And a lot of people are like, well, she's famous. I was like, we're watching a woman getting targeted by her ex-partner in a very bold way. And this is what he's saying in public. Like, what's happening behind the scenes? And there's there was I saw this interaction about a man kind of saying like, oh, well, she puts herself out there and she's not perfect either. So what you're saying is we need to be perfect and completely covered in order to earn our safety and our sanity. And if you're not completely covered up and you're just this modest person behind the scenes and you're not famous, then somehow you deserve safety and you deserve your ex not to harass you all over the place. Like that, it doesn't add up. And I think the way we talk about that, we use very casual language, I think, that really leans on this idea that as women, we need to earn our safety and earn our respect and that we have to earn it, that we don't just get it. And I think that's a big deal.
Earn our authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that if something doesn't go well, you asked for it. I mean, this is the classic, like, what were you wearing? It's that same argument down to all kinds of things, down to, well, you wrote a book. Of course, people are going to be crappy to you about it. You're going to get bad reviews. You might, but you also don't have to read the damn things. Like, you don't have to, you can opt out of doing that. I had a friend that when her book came out, she got a lot of great reviews, but one that was not good. And her agent or publicist or somebody was like, well, we got a lot of good reviews, but this one, not so good. So let's go through it together. And she was like, no, what am I going to do? Go rewrite the damn book? No, it's out. It's done. I don't actually care. I'm not going to read any of them. Those reviews are none of my business. What people think of me is none of my business. And I really applauded that she took that. And I think to this day, she probably has not read any of the reviews for her book. And I think that's kind of spectacular that she's like, it was the perfect thing. What am I going to do? Go back and change the book? No, like, peace out. Bye. And I enjoyed it.
Because feedback is one thing.
Right.
Critique starts to get, especially once a thing is done and it isn't a continuing piece of work that you can work on. Because if it were, then yeah, you could, like, it's like, if that was valid and this was something I could change, then great, but I can't change it. And then too, and this is a good question for creatives, because I think, feedback and notes, as an actor, we often get in that interesting lane where taking notes and doing what is required and how other people see the role sometimes may conflict with how you see it. And you somehow make peace with it because it is a co-creative process. But when you talk about putting your ideas into the world, the things that you have created into the world, which is an authentic expression of you, where's the balance for you? As you've written a novel, you write on all different levels, screenplays and everything. Where do you put criticism, feedback, whatever you want to call it, into the making of the best authentic you that there is, or authentic expression of yourself?
Well, I think you have to consider the source. If somebody with a Twitter account with 3 followers that got created 2 days ago is here to tell me that I suck, okay, thanks, bye, appreciate you, bye. We're done here. But if it's somebody who is in your field, who has experience doing what you've done, okay, I'll listen to you. Like an air check. Those are never fun to do, but you go off the air and then some boss person is like, well, this is a thing. And here's it. Sometimes it'll tell you about it. Will take you had. Of like, oh yeah, I do say right at the end of everything I say. I'm going to get on top of that. Fair enough. But you're right. Sometimes it does conflict. And I think that's where identity comes in. Like I've had male program directors say, oh, you came in a little strong in that. Like maybe basically saying be more agreeable to your male co-host. I'm like, yeah, but have you met me? Because that's not really what I do. That's not really my jam, bro. Thank you so much. So I think you have to temper it. But that to me, that says you also have to be very clear about who you are, which is not always a possible thing in every moment of your life. I think, especially early career, you're glad to be there. And it takes a minute to kind of get your sea legs. So I think take it all with a grain of salt to an extent, but also, okay, what stake does this person have in telling me this, and what lens are they viewing the world through? There was just a very interesting thing that I read the other day about Mel Brooks and how he survived in Hollywood. And basically his thing was, he's like, just say yes and then don't do a damn thing. So he would be like, somebody would tell him, you've got to cut this part of Blazing Saddles, make it more this. And he's like, great idea. Thank you. And he just left. And that was it. And he would say, that's a great idea. And then he wouldn't change it and nobody would notice. And I was like, that is brilliant. And I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 22 years old. Just like say, yes, great. Because sometimes no one will notice that you're not taking the feedback.
That's wild. That is wild. That is the wildest thing I've never heard before. And I love it. And it's true.
It's so true. It's absolutely true. Because sometimes it's valid. Like, hey, you say a lot. Let's get a handle on that. Totally fair. I do. But sometimes, like, if it's something like you're not sounding agreeable enough, well, then I'm on the wrong damn show. Then maybe I should have my own damn show and not be a sidekick to this guy, right? Instead of like, don't assume something's a problem. Maybe it's actually, my friend Stacy always says, if you can't fix it, feature it. So if it's an issue to you, then maybe let's work with what that is. And if you're like a co-host and supposed to be then the sidekick Egg McMahon role, and you keep kind of going off on your own monologue, maybe you should be monologuing instead of monologuing less.
If you can't fix it, feature it. Girl,
I love that.
Like literally, I've never heard that before. And I love it. I love it because that's kind of at the essence of what I'm talking about when I talk about fearless authenticity. It's like that thing that makes us all so unique, that is the thing that when we find the people who identify with it or the people who it resonates with, then that thing isn't something we have to fix. It's just something that somebody else thought we did.
That's exactly.
I got two. Oh, nope. I'm not going to get to the last 2 questions yet. I have one other question for you. What is your proudest achievement or something that you haven't accomplished yet that you still dream of?
Well, I'm definitely going to get an Oscar for screenwriting. That's done. I see that in my head. I hope I didn't just jinx myself. I don't really believe in
No,
jinx.
claim it. Claim it.
No, I see it. I see it so clearly. I believe that is in the cards for me. So that's ahead. There's a lot ahead. I mean, I think that I have been guilty of, especially earlier in my career, instead of saying, this is exactly what I want and this is all I'm here to get, I've been maybe too open to possibilities sometimes and said, oh, well, I guess maybe I hadn't thought of that, which is not to say you shouldn't be open to possibilities, because you absolutely should. But for example, at one point I was working for a news organization and I was doing a lot of bitching about not seeing the path forward because I saw a lot of men in the roles above me. I didn't see a lot of women. I saw a few, but not many. And so I was complaining about that. And I think I was making so much noise. They were like, throw her a bone so she will shut her mouth. And they offered me a role that I was like, I guess I can do that. But I can do it and I want to do it are two different things. You can do lots of things. It doesn't mean it's going to feed that little tiny light of a kernel in the middle of your soul. And I had to surrender my byline to do this because it was like a management role. And it was fun and I enjoyed it, but also I was grieving my byline the whole time. I was grieving not having creative output. And so I think, I mean, that's a kind of a detour, but I think I've done some things that I'm proud of, but they weren't necessarily things I set out to do. And so I still have this very long list of stuff that I'm still after. I got into the screenwriting late, and it's a medium I really enjoy. I like it. I think actually spending time in the news business, interviewing people, because generally, look, you're going to meet a journalist on the worst or best day of your life. Either you just won something and something's great and you just launched business or whatever, or your house just blew up or somebody died or something terrible happened. So you're talking to a lot of different people, and the ability to talk to a lot of people, I think, translates into being able to write dialogue pretty well and think about story arc and the speed with which you have to put together a story and hang it together and structure it, I think helps with screenwriting a lot. So I have a lot of stuff to do with the screenwriting world for sure. But in terms of like an accomplishment I'm super proud of, I don't know. I don't know that I'm not proud of stuff, but I would say I'm not great at celebrating my wins. And I think part of that is that I've always got a lot of things cooking. So I'm usually just like, okay, great, check, next thing, and off to the races doing the next thing. And I've gotten better about that as I've gotten older. But I used to, especially my 30s, I would feel this like, I'm not accomplishing, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not doing anything. And I started, and this is so silly, but I started an actual ass list of things that I've accomplished, because I will go back and look at it and go, okay, all right, you're not just sitting here spinning your wheels. You're doing things. You're doing things that are good. You're doing things that you're proud of. It's okay. It's fine. But I mean, that idea came from a friend, because I kept bitching. I haven't done anything. I haven't done enough with my life. And she was like, can you get a grip already, please? And I was probably about, I don't know, early 30s at that time. And she was like, I need you to get a piece of paper tonight and write a list. And then I started writing this list and I started laughing. I was like, bitch, you've done plenty. Like, stop, please stop doing this to yourself. But what I was reacting to was there was still so much I wanted to do. I felt like I wasn't making a dent in this future list. But in the meanwhile, I was doing fine on the current list. The current hill I was on was going along fine, but I was feeling the pressure of all the stuff I believed was ahead of me. So learning to celebrate wins, I think, is probably the accomplishment I've been most proud of, because it was so hard to learn that. I didn't grow up in that kind of family. I grew up in the family of like, if you've got time to lean, you got time to clean, get to work, do more, get another job. I mean, I started, my dad was in the restaurant business, and I started working for him when I was 14, and I've had no fewer than 2 jobs since. I've always had something going. Student, and I was like bussing tables, and then I was washing dishes, and I was working in the kitchen, and then I was waiting tables, and then I was bartending and like doing all this stuff. And there was always a lot going. So there was this pressure of keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, and learning to stop and go, okay, that was awesome. And I'm going to, get a pedicure to celebrate that, or I'm going to do a thing, or just take a minute and do nothing. I think that's been probably my biggest accomplishment.
I love that because especially as women, I also think this is something that we have in particular is that we don't celebrate our wins because we don't often even see them as wins.
Right.
And that's a whole other ball of wax there to unpack, as they say. All right. What do you know that you are absolutely right about?
I mean, is everything a valid answer? What do I know that I am absolutely right about? I mean, right is a hard word because what does right mean? What is the truth anyway? I think the thing that I'm like like you cannot mess with me about, you could say you suck at this and I'll be like, you are wrong. So wrong. I feel very confident as a writer on any platform. I feel like if someone's like, you suck at that, I'd be like, you're an idiot. You don't know. You don't know me. I feel confident about that. But in terms of something I know I'm right about, like a principle, that's a hard call. I'll think of something great as soon as we're done.
I know, right? Well, then that'll just be an excuse to have you back on.
I love it. I'll be like, I have an answer. Have me back. Have me back.
So the last question I always ask everyone is, when do you feel like you are at your best, truest, most authentic expression of Amy Guth?
I think that is when I am doing something that feels scary, when I'm doing something, confronting fear. And here is why. I have told this story before too. When I was about 4, it's always about my dad, but he's a central figure in a lot of these. When I was about 4, he took me to the pool and we lived near this public pool. And it was before, like early in the morning. And he took me to the deep end and he was like, look at that drain down there. How far do you think it is from the drain to the top of the water? Do you think that's like a tree? I was like, yeah, that's probably a tree tall. He goes, great. Phew, and he throws me in. I was about 4. And what I remember is coming up and thinking, oh shit. And then my dad going, listen to me. I'm not going to let you drown, but you do have to figure out how to get back. So I remember thinking, oh shit. And then the next moment I knew how to swim. So I'm at my best when I just jump in and try it. And that is translated into a lot of things that have served me really well because I'm like, I don't have to have all the answers right now. I just need to get in and do it. I need to walk through this thing that seems really terrifying. And that can be on a lot of levels. That can be speaking in front of a bunch of people, or that can be trying a new platform for communicating or a new social media tool. But that can also be bigger things. I mean, when I said on the air one time, all my colleagues had been invited to jump out of a plane with the Army Golden Knights, and I hadn't. So I was like, oh, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail. And then my invitation came through because they heard me. And so then I was like, now I got to jump out of a damn plane with the Army. But it was great. And I took it thing by thing. And I just sat there going, you know what? All you have to do right now is sit on this plane and breathe. That's all you got to do. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to know anything. You're about to be strapped to like a very good looking dude who's going to jump out of a plane with you. And he's done this a bajillion times. This is like a boring day at the office to him with me. He's a halo jumper. He's fine. So I just kind of took it thing by thing of like, right now, I just got to sit on this plane and breathe. All I have to do is just be alive. That's all I got to do. And then he was like, we get all attached and he was like, okay, are you ready to walk to the back of the aircraft? Yes. And he was like, you seem like you're not. Let's talk. And I was like, no, I'm as ready as I'm going to get, Sergeant Watts. So let's go. We get to the back of it. And he's like, he had taught me like, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, arch. And you stick your hips out so you don't snap your neck and we're going to go out. And he's like, 1, 2, 2, and we're out. And suddenly we're out. And it was horrifying. But the second I was out of that plane, I left so much behind that will never be recovered again. It's right. I mean, that sounds like a silly cliche, but for weeks after I did that, I couldn't even remember things I had ever been afraid of before. And so I think I am at my absolute best when I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to hop in and see what happens. And because that has always served me well. And the times where I have said, you know I'm supposed to do it this way, but I'm not feeling it. I'm going to do it a different way. It's always paid off. My best wins have come from that. My book came from that. The publisher I went with, they weren't even taking submissions at the time. And I knew it belonged there. And I wrote that publisher and I was like, listen, I know you're closed for submissions. Oh, well, first I fired my agent who did not get me. I was like, I know how to read contracts. I'm not an idiot. You're out. He's like, you're never going to do anything without me. I was like, bye, we're done. I treated it like a reporting project. I found what are the books I like, who works there, and where are those people working now? And I found this is where I want my book to be. That particular publisher wasn't accepting submissions. So I wrote to the publisher and I was like, I understand that. However, would you be willing to read a page? He was like, fine. So then I was like, oh crap, what page do I send him? Oh my God. I sent him what I thought was my best page and he came back, all right, send me a chapter. Okay, send me the whole thing. And it worked. So every time I've been like, you know what? This feels wrong. I'm just going to do it my way. I think something wired weirdly in my head that day at the pool when I was 4 that puts me at my best when I just hop into the deep end and try and figure it out. I don't need to go to swimming lessons. I can just hop in the pool and I will figure it out. And I think that's me at my best.
And thank you, because that is the ultimate mic drop. Your daddy was something else. I want to hear some more daddy stories.
He's a character for sure.
Yeah, you gotta love him. I was raised by a character as well. Actually, 2 of them, but my dad was the bigger character. And I certainly understand that. Thank you so much, Ms. Guth.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate you.
I appreciate you very, very much.
One of the things I love about how this podcast is starting to go is that every single guest adds their layers to what fearless authenticity means, not just to them, but what it means at large. It's like I'm building something here with other people and seeing how it turns out. And Amy was no exception to that. There were a lot of things she said that resonated with me personally, things that I've been going through. And the first one of those is fear. It's in the title, Fearless Authenticity, but talking about how fear can be a beacon. And this has been something the last few years that has meant a lot to me, is that when I'm scared of something, it's usually pointing me towards something that needs attention. I hadn't thought about it in terms of uncovering the things that I need to be doing career-wise, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And the fact that she says she has some anxiety about that as well, and that it's a sign of moving towards something and unpacking it more and just getting to know it. Because that's the thing. I think we think with fear, we got to solve it all at one time. When the reality is, it's just like, it's an exploration thing. You can tentatively step around it until you're ready to move through it. And that's all right. Also, the power of starting. Whew. When she said, I've seen so many brilliant people wait to start and become those gonna people. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then they never do it. I think I ran the risk of doing that myself. But the fact that she recognizes that she is at her best when she just jumps in and tries it. I guess getting thrown in the deep end of a pool when you're 4 could do that. But the fact that it served her well and she recognizes that it's okay not to have all the answers now. I think some of us, myself included, I think I may have even mentioned this a few different times, is, I do all this research looking for the answers and realizing that they're not there. So get on in there and do it. And then my favorite piece of advice is what her friend Stacy says: if you can't fix it, feature it, child. Because I think sometimes when we're trying to fix stuff, it's the stuff we think is wrong, but is unique to us and would be a gift to somebody else. So, feature it. As one of my other friends says, let your freak flag fly, honey. Let it fly, because you're not the only one, right? You have your way of doing it, and you have your way of being it, but somebody else might be inspired by that. So thank you, Amy Guth. Appreciate you for sharing, being our guest, and adding to that fearless authenticity conversation. Thank you also to my Fearless Authenticity production team for making this pod happen. And thanks to you, our listeners, for your support. Much appreciated. I hope you'll follow me at JM Sparrow on social. Like, rate, review, follow, subscribe, download the pod wherever you get your podcasts. It's on the iHeartRadio app, It's on Apple, wherever it is. Oh, and we're also on YouTube as well, so you can watch it if you want the video of our conversations. We also want to hear from you too. Send us your comments and your questions. We want to know about the guests that you'd like to hear from, that you want to see me chat with, and how you are doing your best at being your truest, most authentic self, and what's that given you. This has been Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. I'll see you again soon.